So those bluebirds are eating mealworms, and they enjoy them very much. I've probably put out about, I don't know, 30 pounds this winter of mealworms just for them, and they don't eat anything else except mealworms. So we're in the garage, and I'm tinkering on this dart again. I'm back home from work this week, so finally got some time to do some fun stuff. It's a little loud. We have some rain showers around, and it's kind of loud on the roof up here. And I have the dehumidifier running, so it's a little bit loud. So there's stuff going on, so hopefully you can hear me. But I've been picking away at this dart in the engine compartment. So I thought I would just kind of run through this and show you what I've been doing. How far along are we? And we're a pretty good ways away. Everything's in and buttoned down as far as the engine and everything goes in the car, and all the linkages are in. Plug wires are on, distributor in, of course, coils on, power steering pump's on, crankcase breather's in. I have the wiring laid in. Have a new fuel line installed. PCV hoses installed. Choke's connected. Carburetor's on, obviously. Even have the little condenser for the coil. It's down there. It's mounted where it goes. The water pressure switch is in. The temperature switch is in. Fuel filter's back on. Okay, so anyway, that's a pretty good overview of where I'm at with this, and I'm at a little bit of a stopping point. As I mentioned before, I'm going to have to deal with the radiator, the air conditioning compressor situation. As you may remember, the air conditioning compressor turned out to be blown up in this, and that may sound interesting that one of these would actually blow up an air conditioning compressor, but apparently at some point in the past several decades, the oil leaked out of the air conditioning compressor. It has a separate sump like an engine, like this engine, but it's just compresses air obviously for the AC. But it has pistons and rods and a crankshaft and all that. It has to have an oil supply, so it has an oil sump that you're supposed to check periodically. You know, I don't know, once a year, once 6 months, something like that. But at some point, the compressor, I guess, dumped its oil out, and with all the other grunge and oil and crud on this engine, nobody noticed, I'm sure, because it would have just dumped it down right in there where that valve is. And so the next time that somebody turned on the air conditioning compressor, as long as it had the air conditioning, as long as it had Freon in it, it tried to run until it seized up, or partially seized up. So it basically tore up the reciprocating assembly. It's got two bad rods. It's got, I think the crankshaft may be okay. I hope it is. but it's going to have to be totally rebuilt. And I can do that. That's no problem. It's not a hard thing to do. The hard part is finding the parts for it, so I'm going to have to locate those parts. I've made the decision to go ahead and rebuild it because I've started looking around for a used one. And I called this Mopar parts specialist over in Georgia, and they were nice. It was a salvage yard type thing, but he seemed kind of out of it. He just didn't really know how to. He said, well, I've got a remanufactured one, I've got an aftermarket one, and I've got a used one that would probably need to be rebuilt. Because my thought was if I got a used one, at least it turned over, then I would be that much further ahead if I was going to have to buy parts. At least I'd start out with a better core. And I'm not going to say I may still do that if I can find one. I just haven't been able to find one. Because it's like a box of chocolates. You just don't know what you're going to get until you open the thing up. So I could pay for a used one, and then it's as bad a shape as the one I got. I'm just $150 or so down the tubes there because I've still got to buy all the parts for it. So I just think I'm going to be better off rebuilding my original, even though it's going to be expensive. But back to the guy in Georgia, he was nice, but like I said, he seemed a little out of it. He didn't seem very prepared for what I was asking for. And he said, okay, I said, let me get you a price on a core, a used one. So he comes back and he says $150. And then he said the part that made me think that I was thinking of something's going to be a bad idea, because he says, we'll just have to go out there and see if we can find one that turns. I thought, okay, well, maybe not. So I kind of nicely put him off. So, well, I'll get back with you. And then I tried to call the place that's here kind of near me, not too far away. It's a well-known place also. Does nothing but Mopars, and they wouldn't even answer the phone. It was busy every time I called them. So I'm just the kind of person that I don't like that. If you won't answer the phone, you don't need my business. So I'm just going to go another route with it. So I'm not going to deal with them either. And here's my opinion on this. I think that the supply of used Mopar parts is getting thin. I know they show pictures of these yards that got all kinds of old cars, Mopars in them and stuff, and they allege that they have all these parts, but I think they've been picked over pretty heavily. So there's just not much of a supply of it anymore. So maybe my thinking that there was a compressor, which those things are dirt common. They used to be. They used to be before people got all of them and took them off and threw them in piles to recycle them, because I've been reading too many car magazines telling them to replace them with some other kind of compressor, but they got rid of a bunch of them. So now things are getting hard to find, if you can believe it. But they put them on everything from 1960 through 1979. You wouldn't think they're that uncommon. But anyway, so I just think that there's not many, anybody has an old Mopar now, either the thing has been picked over already before they got rid of it, or they restored it. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But I'm going to have to do that because I don't think it's going to be a wise idea to try to get a used one. Unless somebody has one that works, that they knew should have worked, and it's cheap. Cheap is the key phrase there. So I've been looking around in the junkyard listings to see if I can find one of these cars anywhere. I can't find one anywhere. The two up that I picked the other weekend don't have air conditioning. So, if I'd only thought about that a year or so ago. But I've installed several new parts on this engine. Like I said, new fuel line. I put a new distributor line on it. I had the original, but the original was deteriorated. It's pretty stiff, and as you can see, it kind of holds its shape, and the end of it was oil soaked and had split right there. I think that was the end I don't know, it may be the end I think that's the end of the distributor back there. And that makes sense because this engine, as I have mentioned to you, was just soaked with oil. I think it even soaked the back of the hood back here. See that big stain? See that big stain down there? That's the back. I don't know how much oil this engine was going through, but it had to be a considerable amount because everything was just soaked with oil. When I took the heater hoses off, the stubs of the heater hoses, you can see that they are also have a varnish-like coating of oil that has sprayed up over time. That one wasn't so bad, but that's oil. They still didn't come off very easy, did they? Anyway, and I got on eBay and found a new set of plug wires that are about 40 years old, but they're good quality. And I may have mentioned that, I don't remember, but new heater hoses. This was on one of the heater hoses, and I can't find any reference to this even supposed to be there. Somebody might have installed it at some point, but it goes somewhere where these heater hoses are going to be kind of back behind the air conditioning compressor. So they're going to lay down a little bit. They're not going to be that far up. But that's one thing, when you put a car back together, even if it was original like this one, sometimes you have to do a lot of research and picking through parts books and stuff and looking at pictures and pictograms to figure out how things were originally, and I try to put them back that way. So one thing I figured out, some of these cars have an alternator, a heater hose bracket that bolts to the alternator bracket that kind of holds the hoses together, kind of sits up here, and then most of them have this strap. And I was doing research on this. I had to figure out what this was supposed to have, and it did not ever have an alternator mounted bracket. It had nothing up there because these are too far back. What it had was only this strap. So that's correct. It should have had black plug wires with orange boots on them, even though it's a red engine. Looks kind of interesting, but that's what it said. And what else? This would have been painted originally like it is. I have to get a negative battery cable. And the one I have that came off of it's shot. And so that's another thing. I was looking for a negative battery cable. And this one takes a 19-inch negative cable. And you wouldn't believe how hard it is to find that. In fact, I think I found one somewhere, but good Lord, it's like $80 for this thing. So this car is not, I'm not worried about being as correct on this as far as just the right cables and all that to that extent. So I'm just going to find a 18, 19, 20-inch battery negative cable, a generic one, use that. It bolts in right there. This one does not have the ground strap that goes from the negative up to the car like the later ones. It doesn't have that. It grounds back here. It goes to the cylinder head. And what else? I was cleaning up this air conditioning condenser. And you may wonder what I'm doing here with this. I cleaned it externally. It looks like it's in a rough shape, but it's all there. It's in good, it's not busted or anything. It's taken a few rock hits, but I've been trying to fill this thing up with solvent because it's been sitting out so long. I'm trying to get it cleaned out. I hope I can use it because I'm just of a philosophy that I want to reuse everything I can. But anyway, so that's kind of where we're at with this. So I'm going to just piddle a little bit more with this engine, I think. I don't think there's much left to do with it. I kind of get frustrated when I have to stop and wait on something because I vacillate between, it's vacillate. I vacillate between doing nothing and working full steam on this. And so when I get going, when I finally get myself primed up to get out here and tie into this thing, then I get irritated and disappointed when I have to stop and wait on some kind of part situation. It's just what it is. We got worse problems than that going on right now. But I think I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to start taking this windshield out. I meant to tell you something also, a couple more things. This is a new return spring, and I noticed that this thing is not coming back very well. It's okay, but it tended to kind of hang up. See, it's to the end, it doesn't go all the way back where it should. unless you push it. So I lubed up all the linkage down to the transmission and all that. I don't believe that's where it's at. I think this either this accelerator cable is kind of sticky, or the accelerator pedal in there is also sort of needs to be lubricated a little bit. Probably a very thick coat of grease right on the pedal where you step on it, I think would be good. But I think that's going to fix that. This is the old spring that came off of it. There wasn't anything really wrong with it. It wasn't broken, except that I just dropped it. But, well, the heck with you. There wasn't anything wrong with it, but you'll notice that that's the only return spring there is on this. It's not like one of these other ones, which I probably should use. I probably should just use this one, but it's not correct. But this is a double spring, so you'll notice it has two coil springs on it, so if one of them happens to break, then it's still got a spring on it that will help retract it. Otherwise, if that breaks, the thing goes wide open. So that's subject to change at any time. I may use a different spring on it. And lastly, I was dealing with these. I told you beforehand that I like using these band clamps, these wire clamps. They have a name for those. I can't think of it right now. But I've been trying to use like pliers and things like that, and just awful. It's just a battle nonstop. So Old Car Alley Howard mentioned that they had pliers for that. So the first mistake I made was getting on eBay and ordering a set of these things, which are some kind of offshore made, supposed to be clamp pliers, which are terrible. And they got a lock on them. Isn't that nice? But they're terrible because they're so flimsy that this thing moves around up here. It's got like supposed to be spring loaded or something. I don't know what it is. Really, look how flimsy that is. It's garbage. So okay, I went back to eBay. This time I got the right ones. I got a used set of these are Proto number, I think that is 252, and all they don't have any ratchet or anything. They just have the mounts for the springs. And man, they work nicely. See, I bet I might even do this with one hand. Let me see if I can do this with one hand. See that? You can turn them the other direction. Do it this way from the side if you need to. They don't slip. They don't pop out. They don't do anything. I think these things cost me $12. So there you go. That's what I've been doing about buying tools like this. No more of that. No more. Don't buy new junk from China for tools. I think if he were alive, Larry would even agree with you on that. Okay, guys. Well, it's raining on and off, and I want to get cracking and doing some more here. Watch into this. And so we'll plug along on this. And I appreciate you watching. I've had a lot more interest lately in the channel. I appreciate that. Apologize again that I don't always have a lot of time to look through comments and things like that. I just mainly focus on using the time I have to get some things out for you guys and gals to watch. Hope you enjoy. And I'm not going to rip off Howard's closing comment by saying if you want to see this dart run again, be sure to subscribe. But if you want to see this dart running again, you need to subscribe. All right, thanks, guys. Hey, I'm going to show you some more birds coming up right now. See you later. This is turning into a mess real quick. What is up there? Ugh.